members from the various local leagues which coincide with the counties. So as you see on the sign and on our banner, the League of Women Voters of Honolulu is your host. And this is the local league on Oahu, and the topic for today of rail transit is an Oahu-specific issue. And from the turnout, you can see that it's a critical issue of concern. And second, while the panelists will give pro and con views, this is an information forum, not a debate, and it's designed to be interactive so that you'll be able to ask questions and make comments. We're scheduled to go until 11:30, and the format is this. After introductions, each of our 4 panelists will have a maximum of 10 minutes to give their views and reasons. And this will run about 40 minutes. We'll then open the floor for audience participation. Each person and to keep it fair for everyone, each person who speaks will have a maximum of 2 minutes, whether you're asking a question or making comments. And as you can see, we have a standing microphone. It will be moved to the center, and we'll ask that anyone speaking talks into it so that everyone can hear. Our timekeepers, Elizabeth Riley and Charles Carroll, and I are the enforcers for those maximum times, and we appreciate your cooperation. Please be aware that this forum is being videotaped, and please turn off your cell phones and your beepers. Anything that's a noisemaker. I'd say all electronics, but that's not realistic. So, on behalf of everyone here, mahalo to our outstanding panelists for participating today. And they are Ann Kobayashi, who has been the Honolulu City Council member since 2002 for District 5, which includes a portion of Kapahulu and Kaimuki, Palolo Valley, St. Louis Heights, Manoa, Mo'ili'ili, Macaulay, Kaka'ako, and a portion of Ala Moana and Nakiki. And Ms. Kobayashi was also a state legislator from 1980 to 1994. Gary Okino is the Honolulu City Council member for District 8, which includes Fort Shafter, Moanalua, Palava, Aiea, Pearl City Peninsula, Seaview, Crestview, and Waipio Gentry. And prior to becoming a council member in 2000, Mr. Okino was a city planner for the City and County of Honolulu for 33 years. Dr. Panos Prevedoros is professor of civil engineering at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. He's been with the university for over 17 years. His expertise is traffic engineering, demand forecasting, and intelligent transportation systems. He's the author of many technical articles and is the chairman of the Freeway Simulation Committee of the Transportation Research Board in Washington, D.C. He's also president of the Hawaii Highway Users Alliance. And Kenneth Toru Hamayasu is the city's project manager for the Honolulu High Capacity Transit Corridor Project, as well as the chief planner for the Department of Transportation Services. During his over 30-year career in transportation planning, specializing in travel forecasting, he's worked on the 3 most recent projects that propose transit alternatives for Oahu's primary transportation corridor. Mr. Hamayasu has authored several technical papers that were published by the National Transportation Research Board for subjects ranging from transit capacity to fare revenue forecasting. Now the speaking order will begin with Mr. Hamayasu, followed by Mr. Prividoros, Mr. Okino, and Ms. Kobayashi.
Thank you very much, Joy. I'd like to thank first the League of Women Voters for inviting us today and to speak about the project. I'm glad to be here today to talk about and provide you with the facts about the city's proposed transit system, and also dispel some of the incorrect statements made by those who oppose it. And I'm concerned that based on the last week's newsletter, it seems like the league is voting to some of those anti-transit people's pie in the sky system proposal. Let me say that not all of their ideas are bad. The biggest problem we have is their claim of the cost, and it can be done cheaper, and it is better. The cost numbers are just made up by unqualified non-professionals. And the concept of financing plan is unrealistic, and nonsensical. I would like to start taking them apart today and help you see the reality. So let's start with the first. No, that's good. Let's first start out with the things I've been hearing about. That this is not a done deal, and then there's still time to change the mind. In concept of nothing is ever done deal, that's true. But the City Council has already made a policy decision of choosing the systems. As you have, many of you paid attention in our project in the past, we studied no-bill transportation system management, which is an expanded bus system, and a managed lane. That's the correct term of it. Hot lane / busway. Now, what did the City Council choose? It's the system that carries a capacity equivalent to 6 freeway lane of cars. And the cost, we always said that the total cost is $3.5 billion, estimated to be that. Out of that, $1.8 billion is for construction, $200 million is for vehicles, $70 million is for right-of-way acquisition. So this system can be built today for about $2.1 billion on a pure construction cost. And the $1.4 billion we added it is what they call risk management, as well as for soft cost, that is engineering cost. We included something close to 35% in contingency to take care of the future unknown. And the last bullet here is what I like to emphasize. That is the operating and maintaining in the expanded buses at some point in the future to keep up with the demand would exceed the cost of running the rapid transit system. That's the reason why we're saying that this is the most recommended system. Now, this is the balance sheet showing you the total revenue at about $3.7 billion, $3 coming from the GET, and the $700 million from the Federal Transit Administration. This is a reasonable estimated amount we can expect. And as I said, total cost is $3.5 billion, and we included, this is what I like to pay a little attention to it for a moment, because I'm going to come back to this in the later slide. We included the possible interest cost that we may have to incur, because the intensity of the construction is going to exceed the stream of cash flow in the future. Now, one of the myths that's being spread out is the HOT busway option was never considered by the city. Not true. This managed lane is exactly it. Here's a proof. This is the map that was posted in the HonoluluTraffic.com in January 9th, 2006. This is what HonoluluTraffic.com requested us to study, and this is exactly what we studied. Now, some of the pictures of what the bus lane or busway look like. Ottawa, Canada. This is the biggest or the most successful busway in North America, carrying 200,000 passengers a day, and the capacity of bus lane is about 10,000 passengers per hour. Note that there was a 4-lane, and here in Ottawa, Canada, same place, but it's this is a station. The busway would require this 4 lanes of width so that the buses can pass each other at the stops. Consistently, this is the Pittsburgh busway. It comes from the 2-lane facility into the 4-lane because the station. This is what's needed to operate the busway. By the way, both Ottawa and Pittsburgh and many other cities, most cities actually, instituted the busway. They did it by utilizing the abandoned railroad right-of-way. They had these nice railroad coming into the city, so what they did was paved it and run the buses. Makes a lot of sense. That's a very cost-effective way if you have the right-of-way. This is to show you the busway ramp. There is no such thing as little bus ramps. No, the bus ramps got to be very big. This is what's being constructed in the I-405 in Seattle. note the slope, note the size of it. And by the way, this is going to be, if we were to construct a ramp in Honolulu, it would be much bigger because this ramp comes to a stop up here. What I mean by that is that if busway is indeed traveling, or hot lane is indeed traveling at 60 miles per hour, the buses must merge into that. Buses takes about 45 seconds to accelerate to 60 miles per hour. That takes close to 2,000 feet of merging lane. So once he gets to the top of the ramp, then he has to accelerate to merge safely into the other vehicles coming every 2 seconds at the 60 miles per hour. So ramps are not cheap, ramps are not small. This is the, changing the course a little, this is the computer generated to scale rendering of what we're proposing as the guideway through Pearl City area. This is about 25 to 30 feet wide, about 30, the bottom is about 20 feet and the top is about 25 feet high. Contrasting to 1992 when the AIA was trying to scare everybody, this is what it's gonna look like, all right? It looks bad, but look, this is not as bad as this. This is the picture Thomas took of Tampa and what he's proposing to do here. See the similarity? Is this better than this or even that? Okay, now, hot lane cost myth. Panos says the similar viaduct as Tampa will cost under $900 million. I'm sorry, Panos, but you have no qualification to estimate the construction cost. To quote you on a Star Bulletin in October last year, I am not a construction cost expert. Then I would say you shouldn't be making such a definitive statement as this will cost under $900 million. And another operative word here, similar. Tampa and Honolulu hot proposals are not similar. Here's the proof. Based on the Tampa's website, their total length is 9 miles. Viaduct portion is 6 miles. Honolulu, it's being proposed as 15 miles. Tampa doesn't have any ramps. Where it goes onto this facility is at grade. So it's a regular intersection, not a ramp. Honolulu, he's proposing at least 4 interchanges. Then they, by the way, they had a 40% cost overrun. I added this a little bit, the cost of the homes there and here, difference.
Time.
Okay.
Time. 30 seconds.
Okay, very quickly, this is Cliff Slater's note that the $900 million, that's 450 would come from the revenue bond. No, he forgot to add the interest of a 30-year for 5%. That's going to be about $420 million. So payment $870 million. So I hope I have a chance to clarify some of the things that I don't get to do at this point. But please take a look at what are the real costs, not just something people say, this is it. No, ask them to show you the proof. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I clarify, was that 10 minutes?
That was 10 minutes. That was 10 minutes.
Can we get a warning?
I wasn't watching.
Yeah. And now Dr. Panos Prevedoras will speak.
Thank you.
Wait, to be fair,
yes.
let me get out of the way. Use up his stick now.
I believe my mic is on. And I definitely appreciate the opportunity to be here and present our viewpoint. And if we could please take the cover off of my projector, that would be great.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. And I'm delighted that Toru decided to quote me, and I have no problem discussing it. It's, his viewpoint is quite interesting. 3 things we would like you to know about the mayor's transit idea. Number 1, traffic congestion with rail is going to be far worse than it is today, and the city's alternatives analysis clearly shows that. Number 2, whether you believe our costs or the city's estimates, rail transit will cost several billion dollars, as you just saw. Who wants to spend billions of dollars for a traffic solution that will not reduce traffic congestion? Number 3, rail transit is not close to being a done deal. It'll be at least 2 years before the city council will get to vote on actually spending the money. And I show for you the several hoops that the city has to go through, including state and federal EISs, and actually getting a single dollar from the FTA, which in previous opportunities it was reported as 1.2 billion, now all of a sudden it's down to 700 million. So the mayor has to get the story straight. Rail transit is a bad deal, and any way you look at it, and this is, please look the date, it says September 2007, this is from the Federal Transit Administration. These are systems that they do not meet their forecast. Mr. Okino was on record at the PBS show selling you the Pittsburgh system. It attained only 4% of its forecast. The Portland system is the poster boy of light rail systems. Look at what it attained. He said that the Federal Transit Administration. We always give you the federal statistics, we do not give you opinions. Rail transit does not work even at places where they tell you that it does. This is Seattle Times, October 14th. The newspaper says, consider Portland. That city opened its first light rail system 2 years ago and has built several of them. Overall, Greater Portland is no less car dependent than Seattle. Its congestion has gotten worse, just as it has at Seattle. Many Portlanders are proud of light rail. They are faithful. But the last 3 times new light rail plans have been on the ballot in the Portland area, people rejected them. Once you get them, you don't like them. Now here is another one, and actually I would love to compare this with the city's numbers. This is from the FTA report. Look what other cities have spent on rail systems. Yeah, only Los Angeles, a city of 15 million people, spent something close to 3 or 4 billion. Now, look at Los Angeles. They predicted 3 billion, they spent 4.4. And here goes tiny Honolulu with 500,000 people, and Mr. Hamayasu tells you with a straight face that we're prepared to spend $3.5 billion. Just like that. Very good. So, the solution is hot lanes and BRT. Hot lanes is high occupancy toll lanes. Buses and van pools go for free. Low occupancy cars pay a toll to use a free flow highway which has a lot of reserve capacity. I-25 on Denver has a basic toll of 50 cents, and in the peak of the peaks, it charges $3.25. That's in a city of 4 million people, and that is a system engineered by Parsons Bringerhoff, who consistently is doing the analysis in Honolulu and keeps helping the city to plug a rail system. BRT is bus rapid transit, just to clarify. This is my design for hot lanes in Honolulu, that it has 4 entry ramps. Yes, I agree that the ramps will be big, but there is room to build these entry ramps. And there are 4 or 5 ramps along the way, one in the Pearl City area, one at the stadium. Have you seen the space we have around the stadium? One at the Pearl, for access to the Pearl Harbor. One at Lagoon Drive. Have you seen how wide Lagoon Drive is? And one at Wai'a Camilo that fits perfectly in the median. Finally, my system terminates, like the cities, at Iwilei. And watch it. Our system, as he showed you for Tampa, it's a little bigger, but we are not running into residential Honolulu. Their system is running through residential neighborhoods with noise and huge bulk. We're running through industrial and freeway areas, apples and oranges. Now here is indeed the Tampa Viaduct, and to my opinion, and I visited it, it doesn't look big from underneath. It looks very airy. And I want to compare capacity. So if this system has 100 buses, van pools, and 5,000 cars, in 1 hour in the morning, it can carry 12,000 people seated comfortably in cars, vans, or buses. Rail, if you are lucky to running in 3-minute headways with the city plans, optimistically, you run 20 trains per hour, times 300 capacity, 6,000 people, of which 60% are standees. How good is that? So you get half the capacity, and half of them are standing. Woohoo! And you paid $3.5 billion for that. Oh, Mr. Hamayasu said that there are no ramps on the Tampa Expressway. Oh, what is that one? Here is a carpool entering from a ramp. Yes, this section is not elevated, but there are ramps, and we can deal with ramps. Come on, how many ramps does H1 and H2 does? Hawaiian dredging can build ramps out of nothing, And there are a lot of hot lanes in the nation right now. Look at honolulutraffic.com to see a complete list. Now, we formed a group with my graduates and undergraduate students at the UH, and we did the state's largest micro-simulation analysis, and we looked at several options in great detail. Here is a detail of the H1 freeway, Punch Bowl overflowing, and this is Vineyard Boulevard. This is the hot lanes, and it's running parallel to Nimitz Highway, exiting at Guayacamilla. Let's see how this plays. Real quick, hopefully I'm not going to lose a lot of time. Look at it. So look how Nimitz is all bottleneck and the hot lanes are flying at 60 miles an hour, safely exiting at Guayacamilla. Okay? That's how it does. Look at the traffic signal and all the congestion that it creates, and the hot lanes are running at 55, 60 miles an hour, and some of them terminate at Guayacamilla. Things can happen if you engineer them correctly and if you put your mind to it. And Parsons Brigham have proved that time and again by doing the right thing in other cities instead of trying to be subservient to the mayor. And this is the exit at Iwilei, where you have a specific ramp that goes around as a bus-only ramp, and you can see two buses, and ends at Hotel Street. So my buses go directly from the H1, H2 merge to the transit center in the heart of town, which piggybacks very well with the cities. And my old idea in 2002, the city was wrongly going in Kapiolani. My idea was to take the King Beretania couplet and run the BRT there. Okay? As a result now, a student can go from Kapolei to the UH in very short time. And here is an approximation based on simulation. Kapolei to the UH, hot and BRT about 50 minutes by bus. If you take your car and you use the hot lanes, 42 minutes. And if you use rail transit, by following the city's numbers, 75 minutes. How good is that? Several $1 billion to get inferior, even travel time service. Other solutions include underpasses, and here I don't have the time, so hopefully somebody will ask me a question to give you how this works. And I want to conclude because I really want to be, within the guidelines. Alternatives compared. So we compared rail, and I was generous to give 3% reduction of traffic. 4 underpasses, which I'll explain later, hot lanes, or a Pearl Harbor tunnel. Look now how you compare a $30 to $50 million alternative with a $3 to $5 billion alternative. They do the same job for the entire network I showed you, H1, H2 to Makali, while this is the true solution where 1/3 of the congestion goes away. And with this, I thank you for your attention, and I'll be happy to take your questions later.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pedros. I want to give Mr. Kennedy a moment to set up, and he'll be our next speaker. His time will start now, or not yet?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Can you hear me now? Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. Good morning, everyone. In the introductions, they noted that I've been a planner for 33 years before I retired to become city councilman. 25 of those 33 years I spent studying rail systems around the world, and I continued my study after that. So I've been in the professional planning business for over 40 years. So that gives you some idea of my qualifications here. So you heard a lot of things, but I will repeat and emphatically stand by what I have stated before. I'm going to make 3 statements, and I say I can make these statements confidently because there is an abundance of authoritative, unequivocal, and undeniable documentation that supports these points. Documentation that will stand up in any court of law. So my first statement is, nothing can address our future congestion problems like a grade separated fixed guideway system. In fact, it is the only solution that will make a significant difference. Nothing else even comes close. Statement number 2, an elevated hot lane facility is not an effective solution and will do little to deal with congestion. And it would, in fact, be the financial black hole that we all fear. For the hot lanes concept being proposed now, construction costs would be far higher than the fixed guideway transit system. Even worse, annual operating and maintenance costs would be similar to our current bus system, which we now subsidize by $123 million a year. Statement 3, of all the technologies possible on a fixed guideway mass transit system, buses would be by far the most inferior in every respect. If this one bus provided that Councilmember Kobayashi is promoting has the superior product that they say they have, then they should not be afraid of the open competitive process that the city will be going through. If they are not the pre-selected technology, there is little chance that they will be able to compete openly with the other technologies. Okay? And because I've taken these positions, the anti-rail people have accused me of lying about almost everything. Okay? Now those of you who know me, and I hope there are a lot of you in here who know me, I've built my 30 years of working in the community, given of myself for nothing, expecting nothing in return. I built a reputation of honesty and integrity. Because of these accusations, you impugn my reputation. And because these accusations are not true, they're slanderous. Therefore, I've painstakingly tried to corroborate, or I have corroborated, all of the accusations that they've made against me as lies. And if you came here with the open-mindedness that you're supposed to come here with, you will soon see who actually is lying about these things. So let me go through some of their lies, okay, or some of their accusations. Their first lie is that they say, Okino claims Vancouver SkyTrain is running a profit. Last year it made $2.72 million. So they say any talk of SkyTrain making a profit is absurd. So here comes an article from the Vancouver Times. Okay, what does it say? SkyTrain is running in the black. After recovering over 100% of its operating costs in 2005, Vancouver's system collected 3% more revenue than its costs. Statistics from TransLink. Okay, anyway, it says, it says here, revenues run ahead of operating and maintenance by $2.72 million. Vancouver actually makes money because of the operating efficiencies of that system. And that's the system we're looking for in Honolulu. Okay, let's go to the second. Their accusation. Okino says, let's take Pittsburgh. They did both an elevated busway and a light rail system. They projected 50,000 passengers a day for the busway. Their actual ridership after 7 years is 9,500, 1/5 of what they projected. So they says, no, that's not true. Bus ridership is twice that of rail. That's true, because they take numbers from other busway systems in the city and they compare it to the rail system. I was comparing two systems that were built at about the same time. Okay, and this is what, according to an engineer with the light rail project, he says the West Busway, for which some 50,000 weekday passenger trips were projected, appears to be attracting 1/5 of the original ridership forecast. And I can confirm all of the numbers that I used. Okay. The next line. Okay, I'll skip some over some of this. This is the big one. Okay. Line number 12. Their accusation. Okino claims that in Vancouver last year, car usage decreased by 5 billion kilometers because of SkyTrain. And they say it's impossible. Because over the last 20 years, population has increased by $750,000, and they're adding 20,000 cars a year to the freeways. So how can you reduce car use by billions of miles? Now, I have people looking all over Vancouver, and I could not confirm the $5 billion number, okay? I may have seen something else, but let me... They say that it is within the ballpark, okay? I contacted the Vancouver City people, and they did a quick calculation. Based on the fact that car usage per car has been reduced by 6,000 kilometers a year over the last 10 years, 6,000 kilometers a year over the last 10 each car, they estimate that a yearly saving in car mileage driven is about 1.74 billion miles. Okay? So they think that I saw a 3-year total, which is like which is like $5 billion. Okay? And this is even more incredible when you think that population has increased by that much. Number of cars increases by 20,000 cars a year, and still the savings in car miles driven is 1.74 billion miles per year. This is because transit use is steadily increasing. And I'll go to my last point. Panos and the rest of his group continue to accuse us of lower transit ridership, that transit is not the answer. Here's what APTA says. The good news is that public transit ridership is growing on top of last year's record ridership. And here's what they say. Commuter rail has the highest growth of 5.5, light rail second highest percentage with 4.1, heavy rail by 2.8. These are national statistics. Okay? Bus ridership, on the other hand, increased, but only by 0.6%. And this is confirmed by other. Vancouver Policy Institute confirms that. And anyway, I'd just like to get to my last point. Okay. And I know this is going to make some of you very uncomfortable. Okay. But I'm going to tell you right now that I don't lie because my faith in God does not allow me to lie. Okay. God has been so good to me that I don't dare even offend Him. Okay. I can tell you one thing. You can fool people, maybe most of the time, but you cannot fool God. Okay? You can lie about things, but in the end, you're going to face judgment for what you've done in this lifetime. You know, life is short, and pretty soon you're going to be facing eternity. And my conscience is clear that I'm speaking truthfully, honestly, and in a way that will not offend my God. And with that, I hope you guys have an open mind and listen to what we say so you can see what the real benefits of this rail transit is. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And our final panelist, Ann Kobayashi, will now speak.
Thank you, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for allowing this opportunity. The present administration has also been bad-mouthing me, but I'm not, that's their opinion, and I'm just going to move on. But there is such a strong bias for rail. The last administration, there was a strong bias for a form of BRT, and I opposed that, but there were many arguments, no name calling. But this administration, I also question the use of I'm for mass transit. I just question that rail has to be the mass transit. And because I argue against it, they resort to name calling. We've taken many trips to look at transit systems. The different council members have gone to look at different systems. I was invited also to go and look at a bus system. In Europe, there was criticism about that. No criticism if you go to look at rail, only criticism if you go to look at a bus. I did not even go on that trip, but people still accuse me of supporting an alternative because I went on that trip. It just, you know, what happened to public input where we can listen to people, try to find an alternative that fits our city, fits our pocketbook. I keep saying that. Let's keep an open mind. Rail is not the only mass transit system that'll work. The council has yet to decide on the technology for a fixed guideway system. And that's why we say that there is still the opportunity to look at different alternatives. It does not have to be rail. Our system will only go 30 miles, or 33 at the most. There are about 25 to 28 stops. So according to the alternatives analysis, the rail will only go 25 miles an hour. So for that, we should bring a train to our city and lay down track on our roads. We do need an elevated fixed guideway system. And we can accomplish the same thing with a bus fixed guideway system. We can have a fixed guideway bus system with hot lanes. And this will use the same route that the council has selected. The same elevated, dedicated lanes. A bus fixed guideway system can go as fast as the rail, because it'll go 25 miles an hour, or the bus can go a little faster because it doesn't have to take as long to speed up and stop. And it'll have the same capacity, and it is less cost. With rail, you have to insulate the elevated highway because of the electricity that's being used. With a bus system, I don't care which, as long as it's a bus fixed guideway system, you do not have to insulate those elevated roads, and that's why there's less cost. So once again, I say, let's find a system that fits our city and fits our pocketbook. And there's so many questions left unanswered. The spending by Parsons, I've asked many times for a detailed accounting of the 10 million. How was it spent? First I asked for how was it spent, every penny. Then I changed that to $1. How is every dollar spent? And I still have not received that. We spent $10 million. We contracted with Parsons to do an alternative.
Your name and where you're from, and if you have a question directed to a specific panelist, tell us which one before you ask the question. You'll have a total of 2 minutes at the microphone, and yes, you can come back, but what we're trying to do is give everyone an opportunity. So thank you, and we'll take the first question.
Okay, I can't see anything. Everybody lined up in front of the
Okay. Maybe you can hold to the side. Sorry about the logistics. We're constrained by the size of the room. We are probably exceeding capacity, and that tells you something of the level of interest. And again, I'm just buying time here, but I do. I understand that there is a lot of emotion that's running in here, but even as you've heard comments made, it's done with civility and respect, and that's all I ask from everyone. Thank you. Now we'll take your first question.
Okay, actually, this. Could we wait?
Yeah, the switch is on the face, and if you'll, Charles, would you make sure it's on? And that's the other enforcer along with me, Charles.
Hello? Hello?
You mind that?
Hello?
Okay.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Aloha, my name is Jim Brewer. Thank you very much for having this hearing today. I want to get away from the polarization and the name calling and various things, because I don't think this shouldn't be decided on the basis of name calling. And my position is that there are questions which have not even been raised here. I think that we should, everyone who wants to get a fair hearing here, this rail is a done deal. If the mayor does not put, for instance, fixed guideway bus lane on the EIS, if they only do an EIS for the rail, it's already a done deal. So the thing is, I think we need to ask that, because the EIS is the people's way. Because when you get experts on there who represent not just people who are trying to push a position, but who are trying to get at it, that's what an EIS is about. And so the thing is, That's what we need to do. Make sure that the mayor gets the EIS on the fixed bus guideway. It is my opinion that by the time the 10 years is over, that this thing, which is basically a dinosaur to start with, will be a relic. Because technology is moving so fast, and global warming is moving so fast. Right now, nobody has asked this question: where is the electricity coming from? And that will be in an EIS. Are we going to have a separate power plant that's coal-fired to do this, to escalate global warming and the wildfires that we see in California, Greece, and out at Makaha? So these are the things that need to be asked. And we need to get honest answers. We don't have to get it from people who are pushing for different kinds of big money, representing the auto industry and representing all kinds of special interests. We need to represent the taxpayers of Hawaii and our interests. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jim Brewer of the Green Party. I'm chair of the Green Party.
Thank you. Do any of our panelists want to respond to the comment?
I will quickly like to say that I agree that definitely alternatives such as hot lanes and busways should formally be introduced in the EAS analysis and not be excluded. That has been my position. My position has not been to kill the rail, but to fairly look at all the alternatives, their full environmental impact, and properly designed, not like the botched job that was done for the hot lanes in the alternatives analysis. I served in the transit forum that the City Council put, the Transit Advisory Task Force. I was the only member that voted against it. And I can tell you, based on my traffic and transportation engineering experience, that that was not a proper design for hot lanes. HonoluluTraffic.com had a basic idea of what it is. It is disingenuous, to say the least, that a leading firm like Parsons Bridger will take a sketch out of an amateur and make it their solution and the proper design for hot lanes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hamayasu?
Yes, thank you. I would like to answer that in 2 parts. One is, yes, indeed, we did study the bus lane. That's the managed lane.
This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about a fixed bus guideway. Don't continue to do that, Mr. Hamayasu. You're not being honest.
Okay, and thank you for the clarification, but I would like Mr. Hamayasu to have the opportunity to respond.
Thank you. The busway is a busway.
It's
That's
not a
one thing.
busway.
No,
All right.
Let me just explain to you the distinction between the busway and the separating as a rubber-tired fixed guideway. There's been so much confusion on those two terminologies. Rubber-tire system is still in the mix. That's a part of a technology selection process that we're going to go through shortly. In the transportation committee meetings that the council member Kobayashi and I had exactly the same discussion. She had asked, if the system has a rubber tire and operates like a train, will we still consider it? Yes, definitely yes. The people, and the further discussion with her was that if the train comes and stops at a platform and carries you, you don't really care whether it's operated on a rubber tire or the steel tire. In that concept, rubber tire system is still in the mix. Now, where I have a problem with a busway concept is that whenever you talk about buses coming off the street, going up onto this fixed guideway track, and it comes down on another ramp, okay, that cost hasn't been studied by us. Other than in a busway or the managed lane, we had one ramp there. Each ramp, our licensed structural engineer designed it, and it's going to cost about $50 million on a one ramp. To make it on a four-way, you're going to be needing four of those. $100 million to $200 million for each ramp or the interchange. Essentially, it is an interchange. That's where cost effectiveness fades away on this busway concept. Okay? So we have studied this busway. Okay, you're introducing something else, and you need to define that for us to see if indeed we missed something or this is still a confusion of that. Another part that I think it's important, yes, I understand it's time, is that we are following the NEPA process in exact fashion. There's no violation of the environmental process here. The systems that was thoroughly studied in the planning process can be dropped in a NEPA process. That's what it says in the federal guideline.
Thank you. And Mr. Aquino, you said you want to respond?
I just want to respond to that. Is this on? Is this okay? Must have turned it off. Okay, I just want to say that speaking to that obsolescence thing, there are systems in America that's 50 years old that's still running just as efficiently today as it was then. The system we're thinking about from Vancouver has been in existence for over 20 years and have run successfully for over 20 years. So you cannot say that, you know, because of technology obsolescence that it's gonna, you know, that's a negative against it. It's not. Okay, the second point I want to make is we need to keep this an open, competitive process. If buses want to bid on being one of the provider for the mass transit system, they can go ahead and put in their bid. If they think they have a superior product, they should have no problems competing with the rest of the technologies. And that's the way we should. If we narrow it down to one technology, then we stab ourselves in the back. Because now we eliminate competition, we won't get the best price, we won't get the best system. We need to vet this thing in an open, competitive process. And if buses think they can compete, let them compete. Okay? But we're going to find the best system openly. Thank you.
Mr. Hayashi.
Yes, the council has already voted in December of last year. It was Bill 27. I don't know the ordinance number, but the council has already voted that the council will select the technology for the fixed guideway system. It has to be a fixed guideway system. The council will vote on the technology, whether it's bus or rail.
Thank you. And as the enforcer, I'm going to step in here with rule of engagement. You have the 2 minutes at the mic, but after that, no calling out from the audience. That's why we're trying to do this in an orderly fashion, to be fair to everyone. So please, I appreciate your cooperation. Next question.
Madam Chair, my name is Lawrence Fong. I certainly agree with what you mentioned about civility. I really was very offended that Mr. Hamamatsu, in his opening statement, contained some very emotional words calculated to attack the other side. And also in the slide saying that the professor is not qualified. The question I have is, since Mr. Councilman Okino and Mr. Hamamatsu has been involved in planning for transportation traffic for 20, 30 years, why do we have such a traffic problem today? Don't they feel some responsibility? What is the immediate solution to solving all the gridlock and everything? If you ask anybody on the street, that's the primary objection they have now is traffic. And I just want to get an answer from them. Don't they feel they're responsible for having not planned the city properly? Thank you.
Answer is simple. That's why we're proposing this mass transit system. I mean, with the tools that we have now, the ability to do whatever to address traffic, we cannot. The only thing now that will address the impending traffic, you got to remember, there's 40,000 homes in Eva. There's going to be 90,000 homes in 25 years. That's more than double the number of homes there. And unless we have a big solution, big capacity, high speed, reliable system like a mass transit, fixed guideways, grade separated mass transit system, there is nothing that will be able to address that congestion problem.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes, thank you very much. I just would like to say the part about, yes, I started out by making the strong statement about tunnels because it bothers me when somebody goes out to the public and makes the presentation and look at this pattern. he states something like a Hawaiian dredging can build ramps out of nothing. PV is subservient to the mayor. I really object to people who make these statements without shred of proof, just by thinking this must be it. And then the problem to me is that when he says this thing is going to cost only $900 million, therefore you have a better product to buy, much cheaper. Don't you want to look at the credential of the person saying that? He is not a structural engineer. He's not a licensed professional engineer. I give you that he's a professional, he's a traffic engineer and he teaches at the university. No problem about that, yes. As long as he's talking about the traffic flows, I respect his opinions. But when he oversteps into saying that this is going to cost only so much, and the part that he was asking to ask you later about this great separation of the Kapiolani and the Kalakaua, he says it was estimated at $5 million back in 2001. So he thinks right now it's going to cost only $10 million. I really have a problem, and I really want you to take a look at the credentialed people who say this is going to cost only so much, this is going to cost only so much. And if Hawaiian Dredgings can build this thing out of nothing, let's ask Hawaiian Dredging if they can do that. How much this is going to cost. Then I back off on my attack. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Pavidor?
Yes, I'll definitely like to respond to that. That our estimates really don't come out of thin air. We have consulted with folks. Most of them are out of state, but they have experience with this state. And well, of course, I present my specialty as a transportation engineer because that is my PhD. But I do have a basic bachelor's and a master's in civil engineering, and I do understand construction costs. Although I will openly admit that I'm not a construction estimate, like I was quoted in the Star Bulletin. But I can look at spreadsheets of costs and I can make a comparison. And we have very accurate costs of what it cost to build the Tampa Viaduct. Mr. Kamahawayashu time and again has been presented to the public that, you know, the elevated section is very expensive. And the proof from the Tampa project is that the elevated section was less expensive than the at-grade section. Because when you have proper engineering, you use what is called the cookie cutter approach, that you can take these segments and bring them to the site and bring them all together, assemble them at a very low price. Again, I would like to reiterate the fact that I do not think that Parsons Brilinhoff is doing an objective planning and alternatives analysis. Their alternatives analysis shows that. Parsons Brilinhoff has been hired by the San Francisco Bay Area and is doing a marvelous job designing their hot lanes. Why didn't they do even a smidget of a marvelous job for hot lanes in Honolulu? That is my question. And then from that I derive that there may be a bias there. It is my opinion. You can reject it if you wish. Thank you.
Thank you. Take the next question.
Hi, aloha. My name is Reverend Daniel DeGracia II. I'm a resident of Waipahu, and I'm also a United States citizen. And what I'd like to talk about is a concern that I have. We've all heard what the mayor's position is. I remember seeing the mayor get up on television and he said, look, it's already a fixed matter. The rail has already left the station. And you know, that's fine. And we've heard all of the opinions from both sides. But there's one side that we need to consider, and that's the democratic people of this state of Hawaii. Now, I grew up in a generation, I was born in 1979, I grew up in a generation where we were taught to value, among other things, our cars. And we thought that part of the American dream was having our own automobile. And you know, myself and my friends worked very hard to get a good education and a good job so we could buy the car that we like. And now, you know, in Hawaii we have people who are saying we need to pursue alternative transportation. And that means we've got to learn to get people out of their cars. Well, our elected representatives are free to say that, but the fact of the matter is they're still accountable to us. And if we, the people of the United States of America, democratic citizens, say we still want to stay in our cars, no matter how efficient the rail may be, you know what? You still have to be accountable to us. You still have to respect the rights of the majority and say, you know what? If we want more lanes, then we need to get more lanes. And so I just want to pose this to the ad hoc committee that's been put here. You know, even though it may work, if the people don't want it, then you shouldn't do it. And I'd just like to end with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do any of our panelists wish to respond to that?
I say thank you, and I wish more people like you would come out and say the same thing. We're here to listen to people. And we're using your money to pay for this system. So we should listen. Thank you.
Mr. King?
You know, it's a responsibility of government to meet everybody's concerns. Okay, concern in the community is traffic congestion and the quality of life. Okay, the congestion that we're looking at in the future is gonna just be a heavy burden on your quality of life. You cannot expect to spend 4 or 5 hours stuck in traffic and have a quality of life. Okay, we need to find solutions. Almost every major city in the world has gone to rail transit as the solution. And I can show you statistics that show that rail transit brings 4 times the transit use of an all-bus city. 4 times. Worldwide statistics prove that. Okay. Now it's the government's job, the politician's job, to decide what is the best approach to handle a community's problems. If a person wants to drive, that's fine. That's his prerogative. He can drive wherever he wants to. In fact, for the person who wants to drive, this mass transit system will be the best thing for him, because it'll take people off the road and allow you to drive. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other responses?
Well, very quickly, I need to respond because this is a prevailing expression. It will take people off the road so others can drive. Time and again, this has not occurred. And I would like to challenge Mr. Aquino once and for all to give us some credible statistics, not a little Manini article out of a Manini newspaper in a foreign country. Give us some actual numbers from United States success stories. Mr. Aquino, I'm getting tired of getting little transparencies with 2-3 lines, no source, a single engineer and all. Please give me some FTA statistics, FTA, not the American Public Transit Association. That is a lobbying group. FTA is the Federal Transit Administration. Okay, like FHWA, we want to see credible statistics. Many times you have attacked Mr. Slater of cooking statistics, and all he does is creating graphs out of FTA statistics. Please use government statistics and prove to the public that transit systems have worked. And since I have 30 seconds, I'll use that opportunity to tell you that, and I'm very sad that you are a candidate and you don't understand classic travel behavior. The reason that Vancouver is experiencing a reduction in traffic, it was published in the Institute of Transportation Engineering Journal, is because of the aging of population. America and Canada are experiencing the baby boomer. Older people drive less and drive out of the peak hours. Thank you.
Thank you.
A couple of things that occurred to me while Thomas is making that statement. The APTA record, we checked out the record, American Public Transportation Association, as well as the FTA's number. FTA collects statistics. In fact, those statistics are used to come up with a formula for the FTA funding we receive. We always receive about $26 million a year based on our statistics we report. So we check that statistics. Of course, you all know that lying on reporting to the FTA is a federal offense, so we have to be pretty careful, and they actually prescribe exactly the way that we collect those data, and we do that. And we check that FTA records against the APTA number, and they match up. So they're both FTA numbers, and after you want to make anything you want out of the after numbers, but they do match up. And the other thing about the statistics of the people changing behavior or the increase in the ridership, interesting enough, I almost had that article or the editorial from Seattle Times. The very next day, last Monday in fact, Seattle Times had an article where it reported comparing to 10 years ending 1990 versus the 6-year ending 2006, the number of vehicles purchased in this that King County went down to 1/3, from 33,000 annually to 11,000 annually. Reduction in car ownership. Concurrently, the Sound Transit reported the increase of ridership 3 times, from 4.some million to 12.some million. So there are statistics to prove that the ridership is going up while the car ownership is going down.
And, you know, and can I respond to that? You know, just quickly, okay. You know, my slides are short because I only give it 5 minutes, okay. There's statistics behind it. I have a presentation from 2 very reliable sources. Would you allow me to make this presentation? I mean, I can go through all of it, you know. I mean, it's still abbreviated.
Maybe you can include that in your 2-minute wrap-up, or at least the points in response to the others. In fairness to everyone in the line, I'd like to.
Well, I'm trying to keep it short, but he says he wants more information.
I understand. I appreciate that.
I'm Amy Kimura. I have a question aimed at Councilmember Okino or anyone else on the panel who can answer this. And that is, according to the Vancouver website, Vancouver SkyTrain or Transit Authority website, the monthly bus pass, which is good for either the bus or the SkyTrain, is $69 for one zone. And the one zone is primarily the Vancouver downtown area. And most people live outside of the Vancouver area. And so if you need a 2-zone monthly pass for an adult, it's on the order of $88 or $89. And if you happen to live even farther out, there's a 3-zone pass, which is good for everything. And that is on the order of $120 or $130 a month. And so my concern is, for Honolulu, that would mean that instead of our $40 a month pass that we presently pay for an adult, it would be a minimum $69, and that $69 to me would translate to urban Honolulu. So if you get to Pearl Ridge or Eva, it would amount to the 2-zone fare, which is a little under $90. And how many people who are presently riding the bus could afford these kinds of fares? And how many of those, well, 1, who could afford, but 2, how many of those who are presently riding the bus, when they're faced with those kinds of fares, will choose to take their car? Thank you.
Mr. Kia?
You're definitely right. Vancouver's fares are higher, and that's why they make money, okay? But if you look at it, it's $60-something a month. It's like $2 a day, right? But it's going to be a policy call, okay? Like the buses, our policy is to recover only 30% of the cost. And that's why the taxpayers pay $123 million to support that. I'm not saying that our system is going to make money, okay? But I'm saying that a rail transit system has a lot better chance of, and I have statistics that show that rail transit recovers a lot more of the costs than does bus systems, okay? So it's going to have to be a policy decision. Thank you.
I have a quick comment to say that people can go on the internet and check the fares on the BART system, which is a fairly successful Bay Area rapid transit, and you will see from the airport to the Civic Center downtown is $5.25. $5.25. The mayor keeps telling you that our rail will be $1 or $2 like the bus. $5.25 for the BART. Just a reality check that, you know, these systems are so expensive and they don't do well. As far as recovery ratios, we can look at some statistics and see that the situation is really not very good. Which city would you like? Los Angeles, recovery ratio 21.3%. Boston, 46.5%. Philadelphia, 52.2%. Washington, D.C., 65.2. Atlanta, 32%. I can keep going, you know, it's hardly any of them in the United States recovers 50% of the operational costs and 0 of the implementation and construction costs. These systems are heavily subsidized with lots and lots of money, and that is the truth. So again, using their own statistics, I don't see any positive in these systems, anything positive. Seattle Light Rail, oh, this is interesting, 0% recovery. I don't know, are they running it free? That's what the statistic, it may be a typo, but this is from a federal register. And since we have the cameras here, I have a spreadsheet that I don't have it in to present, but I want to show you to see how startling it is, because a lot of people say that rail systems are environmentally benign. So if I turn this around, based on national statistics I have ranked, the systems who reported BTUs, how much energy it takes to transport one passenger 1 mile. Red are the ones that they are worse than car, and green are the ones that they're better than car. So on the average, Mr. Hamayashi may tell you that rail is a little bit better. But if you look at actual systems, most of them are red and fewer of them are green. National statistics. Again, thanks.
Thank you.
All I can say is, you know, let's keep our hearts and minds open, and let's find a system that fits our city and fits our pocketbook. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kobayashi. I think that's exactly the point that we're trying to make. I think you see there's a confusion among Palmer's statement that sometimes he goes into anti-rail and sometimes he goes to anti-transit. What we're saying here is the transit is here to stay. Now, are we going to continue to run the buses at higher cost or chance of getting into higher and higher as you increase the fleet size? Remember, 70% of the bus operating cost is labor. Each train carries equivalent of 4.5 times of the regular buses. So it makes sense to get the higher speed and the less costly system here. A good example, shooting numbers. I know this is a little bit about just comparing the numbers to numbers. Here's the reason why we're saying that the rail type of fixed guideway is better than running the buses. Calgary, light rail operating cost is 25 cents per ride versus 89 cents for BRT. Vancouver, SkyTrain costs about 75 cents per ride compared to $1.04 to $2.22 for BRT. We're not saying that let's not do transit, let's not do hot lane, let's not do busway. We're saying that let's do something that is efficient so that ourselves and the future generation can afford it. We're going to be continuing to subsidize the transit system. That's the fact of life. Okay? But as long as we're going to have a transit system, let's have something that we can afford to maintain. It's almost like, sorry for dumbing a little bit, but it's like a solar panel. You know, you encounter huge cost in the beginning with a hope and then your foresight that you're going to save money in the long run. That's exactly what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Where to begin? Thank you very much for having this forum. I'm Dennis Callan with HonoluluTraffic.com. And the real issue here before us is usability. Which system is going to be more effective in getting people to use it? And the city's had 45 minutes already this morning, and they've completely failed to make any case whatsoever for how rail would attract more people than an efficient hot lane system. They haven't even talked about carpools, van pools, toll-paying cars, for example. That hasn't been mentioned. What about that? What about usability? The overall hot lane can be 10 times more effective than rail. Just guessing. 10 times more. Yeah, I'm not an engineer, but I've been involved here for 30 years. I've ridden on 42 mass transit systems around the world. Comparisons to Vancouver and other cities are largely irrelevant. Vancouver, 2 million population, rapidly growing, high urban densities, irrelevant. We have a unique situation here in Hawaii. We have the lay of the land that we have to deal with, our settlement pattern. is not conducive to rail. What we need is an effective mass transit system with grade 7 express bus that doesn't stop. And it takes a half an hour to get you to downtown. The differences are so obvious, it's almost ridiculous. So I'd like to hear some comments about usability, which would attract more users and be more friendly to those users, minimal transfers, rapid speed, and there you have the cost effectiveness. Sure, if you have a train that's full all the time, which we wouldn't have, it could be more cost effective.
Thank you.
But it wouldn't be.
There should be a patronage study somewhere.
I don't think we're disputing the merit of increasing the highway lanes. That's fine. Yes, people use cars. Let's add more highways to accommodate that demand. That makes sense to me. The problem here is the people are saying that that can be done cheaper. No, it cannot be done cheaper. Adding the 2-lane viaduct or even 3-lane viaduct, just look at the mass of that. Look at we actually calculated how much cubic yard of a concrete it takes, how many pounds of steel we need to use to reinforce it. This is what we do to come up with that kind of cost. People can say, oh, that's done by the city's engineers. We're subservient to the mayor. Not true. I'm a technician. I'm not a political appointee. I'm not obligated to do what mayor tells me to do. Our job is to do what passes the federal government's scrutiny. In fact, they did that. They hired another consultant and asked us to give them this with a computer backup and everything. And they matched against the national figures and in their statistical sampling and analysis and came back saying this was done right. That's what I'm saying. We do this because we have to. We're accountable to you. Now, people making up the numbers to say, we can do it cheaper, that's what I object. Look at the numbers. What they're saying when they talk about, oh, this is done fake, this is done wrong. I think what they're really saying is, we didn't do it the way they wanted us to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to respond.
Go ahead. And then Mr. Aquino.
As far as cost is concerned, I will read you a statement from the Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority. It is a county authority, as in Honolulu, City and County of Honolulu. The actual contract price for the 17.5 lane miles of bridge structure was just over $100 million, which, in case that it's not clear that it's so inexpensive, you can literally build this system in Tampa and barge it to Honolulu, literally, for under $500 million. So I don't know where their numbers, and they're super qualified engineers, how they do their calculations. You can literally build it in the East Coast and through the Panama Canal, instead of containers, bring the segments and assemble them here, and it'll be $500 million. And I still have 1 minute, and I'll use that to address the original question by Mr. Dennis Callan. Usability. Well, national research has shown time and again, this is research out of Arizona State, Berkeley, and UCLA, that buses, after automobiles, are the #1 mode for serving the elderly and the handicapped, and heads and shoulders the #1 mode for the unemployed in order to reach employment opportunities. Rail systems, unfortunately, and by design, they have 21 stations as their design. So 21 stations, the opportunities are very limited to take the rail and find jobs, and then you have transfers and too much humbug. I mean, just go to HonoluluTransit.com, their site, and look at the size.
Capacity is limited. Where do you find parking? We have. That's why you're just going to see gridlock backed up on this elevated freeway. And that's the reality of doing things with only cars. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kobayashi.
Yes, thank you. You know, it's interesting that the past administration kept pushing BRT. We talked about light rail. No, it had to be BRT. And these same people are now keep talking about how bad BRT is and how good rail is. So I find that very interesting. And whenever we mention bus, there's always talk about the BRT or a busway. We're talking about a bus fixed guideway system, and no one from the administration will ever respond to that, and I don't know why. A bus fixed guideway system will use the same elevated dedicated lanes. The beauty part of it is we do not have to lay track on that highway. And these same buses can come from Ewa Beach, Waianae, Makakilo, Kapolei, and just get onto the elevated. They do not have to transfer from a bus to a train. They can just stay on that same bus and get to town. And if there's an emergency, we can take all those buses off and use it. The emergency vehicles can use it, fire trucks, ambulances, because there will be no track in the road. So once again, let's keep an open mind, and when we talk about apples, let's talk about apples and apples, not apples and oranges. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Hello, my name is Philip Blackman. Thank you. First, I'd like to address the idea of anti-transit. I think that's an unfair description of a lot of folks that would see an expanded notion of transit to include public-private partnerships, the use of tolls if necessary to have an alternative to taxation for the financing, a little more addressing that the user pays for the service as we find in other communities. I would like to suggest that there are a very useful role of private industry to provide jitney service, other forms of service that have not been addressed by the city that could expand as a solution. I'd ask the city why the 8,000 city employees haven't been asked to give their opinions on whether they would get on rail, whether they take some other alternative than the cars that they use to get to work every day. Why build 40,000 new homes and claim that that's the reason you have to build a transit system, instead of saying we should need jobs in that community to reduce the necessity for transit. On the chart which was presented showing all the alternatives that were considered in the alternatives analysis, you noticed that the no build was scratched out. But in fact, I've heard many times to say that we're buying and paying for and going to have all those elements of the no build. So let's really know what we're buying and what we're going to use our tax dollars for. And then very much on the alternatives analysis, I think I heard again today from Councilwoman Kobayashi that that the alternatives analysis was truncated in some fashion, and that's today we're looking at in October, and yet the contract itself had never been modified to truncate any of the services to be offered by that contract of over almost $10 million. And additionally, the 720 days has been expired, so I would think the council should be well advised of everything that has come out of that, instead of giving some still mystery of what to expect from that.
Thank you. Any responses?
I think the question was for me. I can start out with the last point. I believe we provided the information that Councilmember Kobayashi requested. But she asked for all the accountability, and we sent the billings and records of who we paid how much to that date that she had requested. So that's been done. And also the amount that the 720 days, that's all the regular standard city contract that excludes our review time. So that's netted out. So the contract is not closed yet. Okay, now about the no build scratched out. No build is scratched out in this presentation for the ease of understanding. That doesn't mean that no build, that's $3+ billion worth of a highway project that's identified in the ORTP has been scratched out. No, they were included on every alternative. So as I always said in other presentation opportunities, that we're not doing just $3.5 billion transit. We are programmed another $3.2 billion of the federal funds, federal highway funds, and the state funds to do a lot of highway projects. Interesting enough, that includes Nimitz Flyover. That's connecting the H1 to downtown. So all that is included in the overall scheme of things. And then that report identified that we have to do some major transit improvements as well. So this is an added piece to no bill. Other part about the PPP prioritization and a toll road, those are financial mechanisms that we can look into, and in fact we will look into in addition to what we already have. Please understand that the federal process is that we can only come up with a financing plan that's already in place or regulatorily allowable. So that's the basic financing plan we are focusing on. In addition, that will relieve the cost of the public funding.
Thank you. Any other comments? Ms. Kobayashi?
I'd just like to say that I never received an accounting of how the $10 million was spent. Sure, I received a report that so much was paid to this company, so much was paid to that, but I wanted to know the details of how the money was spent, not who it was paid to. I want to know how the money was spent. But what was the cost? The DEIS was supposed to be part of that contract, was not done. How much was that? And we were told that, so I asked, would there be a discount because they didn't fulfill the whole contract. We were told there were other requests and other parts of the job that had to be done, and that covered the $10 million. So what is that cost? How was every dollar spent? That's what I've still been waiting for. We're talking $10 million of taxpayers' money, and I think that the taxpayer deserves to know how their money was spent.
I have a comment.
Okay, can I just quickly respond to that? How the dollar was spent. The contract itself has a scope of work, and in the scope, it's clearly stated each scope is costing how much. And when you look at the bottom line of all the scope and all the deliverable costs, it comes to $10 million. And that's the information we provided. In fact, you can get access to that information because that contract is public record.
Thank you.
I think Mr. Blackham brings up at least two good points. That traditionally our planning process has been weak. Mr. Aquino spoke to you about extensive housing development, but the lack of commensurate employment development so that the jobs can stay close to home. I think this is very significant, and it shows that it's a one-sided equation, and they don't take account of initiatives or promote initiatives for business development so people do not have to travel as much. I was delighted to hear that Kamehameha School's Bishop Estate plans to create, Ala Moana #2 out there. I hope that a big shopping area and a lot of other jobs materialize there. And if they do, which they should, then we really don't need a high-capacity connector between that side and downtown. That's number one. The second very good point is PPP, public-private partnerships, which are actually a fantastic tool to get yourself out of sucking taxes out of people, brings in private capital, you develop projects, and then you recoup money with user fees. Unfortunately, although quite a few good bills have been at the legislature, some of them, sandbagged or what have you, the city was never present to support any of them. So they may be talking a good game, but they don't try to support any of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Aquino?
Okay. The city, I never talked about housing development, but anyway, just to let you know, the city's major growth policy has been to develop a second city as a second employment center for the basic purposes of turning traffic around. But every city does that. And the proof in the pudding is that you can only turn around 25% of the traffic. So you still need a mass transit system. As far as public partnerships, we are going to be using that in our process. But finally, I just want to tell you that When I first joined the council, there was this big push to do BRT. And I was the only council member against BRT. And that finally died. BRT is basically the same concept, you know, of this elevated portion over the freeway coming down into the city. The reason why that died is that, number one, to make that concept work, you had to have exclusive bus lanes in the city or the buses would not move. Yeah? And what killed it was people were not willing to give up lanes of traffic to make exclusive bus lanes. And that's going to be the failure of this hot lane proposal. Unless you have exclusive lanes, if you can take away traffic lanes and make them exclusively for hot lane use. That's the only way it's going to work. Otherwise, traffic is going to back up onto the freeway. And like I say, it still hasn't addressed the parking problem that's going to be needed with that many more cars coming into downtown.
Thank you. As we go to our next questioner, I want to just point out realistically that we're talking about 10 to 15 minutes maximum for everything. Our next questioner is in line, and the person after that is one of our videographers who had passed me a note. Who you don't see her, but I see her, and she'll be the next questioner after you and before you. So, depending on the scope. I understand. So we'll do our best, but I'm saying realistically, because we're not going to go over the 11:30 schedule.
I'll just say one thing. I've over 44 years in transit. I've worked all over the world. I think it helped me get people clear.
So.
So I'm Randy Leon, private citizen, no vested interest in either side. But I think this question is addressed to Councilman Okino. My concern among many is the inevitable strike that's going to occur, if we do build a rail project. And as many of us know, London had a major subway rail strike last month. And the reason that the city opposed the unions was because the cost overruns were horrendous. It's about $4 billion over the estimated cost of the repairs, maintenance, refurbishing of their subway system. But because the City of London was pretty much put to a standstill for several days, the city had no choice. They had to settle. They succumbed to the unions. Something very similar happened in New York City a few months prior to that. Again, so my question is, if we do build this rail system, wouldn't that make Honolulu held hostage, vulnerable to this kind of a situation where they have no choice? Once the strike happens, they're going to have to succumb. So that's my question.
Thank you, Mr. Okino.
So our estimate to provide the kind of capacity on this elevated hot lane, we're going to have to add about 500 buses to get a similar kind of capacity. So my question is, if we have a bus strike, isn't that the same thing as having a rail strike? Number two, Vancouver in the last 20 years have had their rail system available for 99% of the time. And the reason for that is that because it's an elevated, grade separated, fully automated system, there are no drivers on that system. And that's why they're able to break even on their operating cost. If we can achieve that kind of situation, which buses will not allow, even if it's on the fixed guideway, buses will have to have drivers. Okay? So, that's my response to that.
Thank you.
I have a response.
Very briefly.
Very briefly.
Since it was addressed to Mr. Okino.
Yes. Mr. Okino keeps referring to foreign systems, and I have been a passenger in some of them. Can he mention one American system that runs without motorman? An automated system, rail system?
Miami, Detroit.
Sure.
New York City.
New York City, which line?
42nd Street shut.
And,
oh, okay.
And on that note,
that's good.
Charles, would you pass the mic, and then you'll be our next question. Oh,
real short?
Yeah, very briefly.
Actually, this is a duplicate of what the council member said about the strike. Yes, labor strike is a reality, but it's nothing unique to rail. So either you have a transit system, you have all the union workers, or you don't have a transit system, and you don't have a union system. I mean, it's not unique to rail. So the reason why I wanted to respond is because I was accused of lying about the rail being reliable. And the accusation was that it's not reliable because it has labor strikes. Please, labor strikes would occur with any union system.
Thank you.
Good morning, folks. My name is Robert Tane. I'm from the mainland, from a little town called Squim, Washington. I worked in transit for over 44 years all around the world. First thing I would say is don't ever believe any capital cost any blithering consultant gives you. I was at Parsons, PB. Don't believe any transit ridership they project. I don't care who does it. We are not God. I have done transit projection, safety and system assurance, scheduling buses, scheduling truck operators. I've been through the whole gamut. Every cost will go up. Like Taiwan Parsons told 3.5 or 3.9 billion. At 6 billion, at a presentation in Singapore, the Taiwan rep said, Parsons, because of the consultant, our prices went up. Okay. That's all I'm going to tell you. Another thing, I first read the Daniel Mann Johnson Mendenhall report on Honolulu Rapid Transit in 1967. They advocated people movers and light, svelte structures. It's 40 years. Are we going to have Japanese pump over-age Japanese tourist type structures now? We have to do something. As Council Lady Kobayashi said, you agree on something and do it. Let's not stand around on bus rail. Whatever's good for the people, let the people decide. It's done all over the world. That's all I'm trying to say, folks. And don't believe anything you read. Another thing, Councilman Aquino, please don't say operating cost. That's a fallacy. You can hide your, I've done accounting for them. Hide your accounting and operating. There is always a maintenance cost associated with operating cost. You have to maintain the tracks, the vehicles, everything. Operating cost is just a motorman, a rider, whoever it is, and what it costs to operate. Not just always mention maintenance costs. And whatever you do, please keep an open mind. Nothing is black and white. The whole thing is something, you may have to feed the buses to the transit system. As far as light rail goes, as far as congestion goes, Atlanta has one of the worst congestion, has one of the best transit system in the world. New York City, I used to live midtown. My gosh, you see the traffic congestion. Washington, D.C., if you ever lived there, Christ, just it's congestion. San Francisco trying to get to the bridges. There's congestion. It is not a panacea. It's a social service which is needed. That's about all. But please, as Council Lady Kobayashi said, please come to some agreement and do something. After 40 years, what are we trying to do? I'm from the mainland.
Thank We will have at least one response to that.
Yes, I completely agree that the cost analysis and the ridership analysis are at best our best estimates at this point. But I think that the most important thing, and this is what I'm emphasizing all along, is if you're going to compare the cost of one system and another system, you have to compare on the same base, apples to apples. You shouldn't be taking just the construction cost only from other city, double it. Oh, this is how much it's going to cost for us. What we have to do, as I showed to you, we have to analyze the cost of building the structure, starting from the material take, comparing to the current systems, the currently built similar structures. And then we look at the history, for instance, like H1 cost, H3 cost too. Then we build up these costs equally for all the systems. And that's what we're saying, comparing to this cost and that cost, here's a cost analysis and the cost effectiveness. Which would you choose? It's like trying to buy something. You go out and buy some major appliances. Of course, you want to compare apples to apples, not something that's here, written up in somebody's kit picture versus something that's done correctly. That's all I'm saying. Let's compare in the same level and be fair about this.
Thank you.
I have a response for sure. And exactly, I agree with Mr. Kamayashi that it has to be apples to apples. And I fully agree with his rail estimates. Here's the proof. In Washington, D.C., as the gentleman says, they have a heavy rail system. We plan a heavy rail system. Their extension to Dallas Airport is $244 million per mile. That is Washington, D.C. If you do the math for Honolulu, their math is $240 million per mile. Very good. 244 in D.C., 244 in 240 in Honolulu. Very close. Hot lanes or highways. Tampa, 32 million per mile. Go to the West Coast. Highway 210, 32 million per mile. Go to Mr. Hamayashi's estimation for Honolulu, 162 million per mile. Rail is the same. Highways cost 5 times more. Okay? Honolulu math. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm afraid this will be our final question.
Why not extend the meeting?
Anyway, I would like to ask a question actually of Mr. Okino, and later on I'll bring something else up. I do a public access TV show, News and Views, and I've been covering this issue. And I was talking to a bus fixed guideway representative recently, and we were talking about something very interesting. I personally think we need mass transit, and Councilman Aquino and I understand Councilwoman Kobayashi both were against the BRT. I agree we need dedicated lanes. We're not going to get out of gridlock unless we have dedicated lanes. Okay, now the question is, Councilman Aquino, would you please make sure that dedicated bus fixed guideway gets studied in the EIS so that we can make sure that that's one of the choices we can have? And I will say so for this following reason. And I hope you make sure, as a member of the Transportation Committee, you get it on. Because I understand, on my next show, I was speaking to Mr. Lee of a dedicated bus fixed guideway company. Anyway, and he said that in 10 years, and this is a firm figure, pretty firm figure, we will be able to have hydrogen. We already have hydrogen fuel cell buses now. Iceland has everything, hydrogen fuel cells, 100% renewable energy. In 10 years, it'll be commercially viable. So in 10 years, we can have buses with hydrogen fuel cells in them and be, with an renewable energy source in them. If we build a rail, we will be tied to fossil fuels. In 10 years, when we're finishing it up, we will be tied to a fossil fuel source. According to Mr. Lee, we can build 6 routes from Waianae, Makaha-Waianae, from Wahiawa through Mililani, from Kailua Kaneohe, from UH North, from Waimanalo, and going through the airport for the same price on dedicated fixed guideways as the rail. One route costs 3.6. 6 routes of the bus dedicated fixed guideway will cost 3.6 billion. And if you would like, I would like to ask if you could verify that with Mr. Lee.
Thank you. Mr. Aquino?
My first comment, of course, is that if we do have hydrogen fuel cells, we're going to be generating electricity with hydrogen fuel cells also. So, there's not going to be any advantage to doing cars. Whatever cars can do, rail electricity can do it also. Okay? My second point is, right now I know for sure that they can be part of the competitive process. Buses can be part of the competitive. I don't know how it's going to be included in the EIS, and that we have to ask the administration, whether they need to be included in the EIS or not, because it's their call. Maybe Mr. Hamayasu can give some insight as to how we can make sure that the buses can have be part of this open competition to be the provider of the technology on our bus guideway.
I think there's still confusion as to what is dedicated busway versus what's the fixed guideway system. We will be looking at the fixed guideway system differently, and we're going to be looking into different types of technology that fits into the fixed guideway. Now, if the bus type of the vehicles can provide the required capacity and it runs in a similar fashion as we are analyzing the characteristics of the vehicles, certainly that type of system is still eligible to compete. That's going to be on the under the definition of a rubber tire system. There are rubber tire systems that's running in other parts of the world, so that is possible. But when you say bus, regular bus coming in and going, as I said earlier, that's where we have a problem. Then you're talking about the completely different impact, completely different cost. And we will not be including the bus way with the ramps in our next step of the EIS. But we will certainly be including same fixed guideway system with a rubber tire system in it.
Thank you. Dr. February?
I'll defer.
Okay. Then we have one final, and you're going to make comments, I believe. True? Or are you asking questions?
I'm not quite sure.
The reason is that we're at the point where I wanted to do closing by each of our panelists.
So we were accused of lying. Mr. Pino, I would just like to point out that of the 21 points that we accused him of, he only chose 4, and then he didn't choose a single authoritative source. I brought these just in case questions came up over some of these points. They are all federal or city documents, every single one of them. So when you put up on the board things like Vancouver Times, etc., okay, and where we're quoting the Vancouver government, I'm sorry, they're just not credible. And the last thing I wanted to point out that while we appreciate your faith, rail transit is not a faith-based initiative. It is a fact-based initiative. And we have the facts. The next point I wanted to make was Mr. Hamayasu's point that PB is not subservient to the mayor, whoever the mayor might be at the time. And I want you to go look at the documents, the EIS documents for the BRT, in which they PB wrote that we were not going to do rail because rail was too expensive and the buses could do it equally as well. Okay, now we come fast forward just 3 or 4 years, and PB is recommending this as the most cost-effective way to go, whereas the rail. While in the rest of the country right now, PB is hot on the trail of hot lanes. So it is not unusual that we should think PB biased.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'm sorry, we have like 30 seconds. I'm sorry, you really cannot. I want to be fair to all our panelists and give them 2 minutes each for closing. We're going in the reverse order that we did from the beginning. And we'll begin with Ms. Kobayashi, then Mr. Aquino, then Dr. Privadoras, and then Mr. Hamayasu. So thank you, and Ms. Kobayashi.
Thank you. First of all, it surprises me that only one council member was against BRT. I was very strongly against BRT. I even had a press conference on it with several other legislators from our district. We were all against BRT, and it just surprises me that he was the only one, because I was out there always opposing BRT. And for a bus fixed guideway system, no drivers are needed either, and you can link 3 cars together. And the required capacity, I don't, the administration keeps saying that the council voted on a required capacity, and I could find no vote to that matter where 300 people had to be moved at one time, and a bus fixed guideway system could easily do that. And as far as the spending by Parsons Brinkerhoff, you know, the scope of the contract, the amounts were given. So I'm looking for also, if that is true, then how much was allotted for the DEIS, so that the council will then know how much we should spend when the DEIS is prepared. It should be less than 10 million, way less than $10 million. So once again, I must end by saying, pleading, let's find a system that fits our city and fits our pocketbook. That should be very easy to do when there are alternatives out there. We just have to look at them. We cannot close our minds and just say rail. And that was said very early on, and it just surprises me and disappoints me. All these scoping meetings were held, all the public meetings, and all the time it had to be rail. And I don't think that's fair to the public, and they are the ones paying. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Shea?
Okay, I was just saying that when I first came onto the council, Mr. Kobayashi wasn't on the council, and I was holding a lonely fight against this thing called BRT. But anyway, you know, I just want to tell you, from my heart, you know, I've looked at this for many years, at least 30 years I've looked into this. I've been all over the world. I've talked to the experts on this thing. We need something. We need something. If you look at the population that's projected for the next 20 years, and it won't stop there. It won't stop there. I mean, we have enough land developable out there for the next 50 years. Okay. Now we already, my aide takes an hour and a half from Eva to commute to town on an average. Okay. You double the number of cars. What do you think will happen? I've looked at this thing inside and out. I've looked at rail systems all over the world. We picked Vancouver because that's the perfect model. Doesn't matter what it is in a foreign country or not, but the concept is good. Grade separated, fully automated. I mean, that's what's going to get us to where we want. That's what's going to limit our costs. Okay? You cannot be short-sighted. Okay, I mean, a lot of communities are short-sighted and they provide light rail, the stuff on the ground. That stuff's no good. Okay? Because if it's on the ground, there will eventually be some kind of conflict with existing traffic. And that's what slows down the system. That's what limits the capacity. But I'm talking about a grade-separated, fully automated mass transit system. And if we can get to that point, you know, we can move hundreds of thousands of people at a very reasonable and efficient cost. That is not, if you talk about an elevated hot lane and you got to add double the bus fleet, you are going to be subsidizing the cost of that operation by double of what it is today. Minimum, another $125 million. And that's annually. Every year you're going to pay that. So I hope you listen to me. You know, I'm just honestly and sincerely believe in all my experience that this is the only way to go.
Thank you. Dr. Prendergast?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. It was a very informative panel, and I hope in addition to us here and our viewers in Honolulu that the mayor also is watching, or he will see this, because I would like to remind him that the Council on Environmental Quality regulations require an environmental impact statement to objectively and rigorously examine all reasonable alternatives. They should include alternatives that are even outside of the jurisdiction of the DTS or the FTA. Therefore, Mr. Mayor, please conduct an EIS that includes exclusive busways and hot lanes. In summary, I would like to make 4 points. Traffic congestion with rail is going to be far worse than it is today, according to the city's own calculations. Rail transit will cost several $billions and will not reduce congestion. Rail transit is not a done deal, and it shouldn't be a done deal. And there are far better and less expensive alternatives. And I encourage all of you from time to time to be looking at HonoluluTraffic.com so that you can get a reasonable second view of what is going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Yasu?
Thank you very much. Thank you for Lee and the attendees that are here to give us a chance to battle it out and who's telling what side of the story. I'm glad that we have this chance, and I hope that at least I was able to get you some doubt in the cast of doubt in your mind that maybe there's other side. And then I'm happy to come to your meetings and explain to you whenever you say you hear something that's too good to be true, please check with us, and then we'll give you the other side of the story. But what motivates me to come here Saturday and spend this time and everything else? There's a good chance that Hamayasu is going to be here for a while. So this is just as I'm trying to do all that what I'm asked to do in my job, but it's also personal. I would like to leave this place, as Mayor always says, and I fully agree, I want to leave this place better than how we found it. And the one chance we have to do things right is to get something best for the money. Now, there was a lot of talk today about I was pushing for BRT. That's true. I was a project manager for them. But please remember that at that time, there was no dedicated tax. That was the best we could do with the money we had. So we always said that. The rail is great, but we just cannot afford it. Today, we have the system that with our calculation, I can tell you with a confidence, we can afford to build it and we can afford to maintain it. In fact, it's cheaper than all bus system. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're at the end, and I hope you found this interchange of information and insights, questions and answers, and comments helpful and useful. I thank you all for being here and for actively participating, and believe me, from the level of energy and passion that was in this room, I can only ask or suggest that you join the League of Women Voters in making a difference with energy and passion, because it's committed to principles. So please consider joining us. And on that, I thank you very much. It is now 11:30, and we are
Hi, Joe. How are you? Very good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, I got that.
It's not very expensive. I mean, the camera's a couple $100. You shoot CVI and then you do what you want with it.